Well, thank you again for meeting with me today, Mr. Custrid. As I said earlier, my name is Heather, and I work with the Single Parents Outreach Coalition, which is a program here at the elementary school. Ultimately, we work with single parents, making sure that they are able to facilitate the appropriate development and educational opportunities for their children. And that includes finding child care services, tutoring services. If there are times when you're struggling at home, we have counseling services here as well. And ultimately, we want to work with you to connect you with resources throughout the community that will really foster that development for your daughter and help you through her aging process.
Okay.
Awesome. So, why am I here exactly? We did get a notice from Child Protective Services worker. It's not a open investigation yet, but there were some allegations made based on the fact that Amelia has missed several days of school. She has reoccurring latenesses and has been seen coming to school without her lunch. And she says she forgets it all the time, but we just want to make sure that we as a school district are doing everything that we can to ensure that you and Amelia are both set up for success. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Perfect. The first thing I really want to touch on is our confidentiality agreement. I had you sign a consent form earlier, but I just want to go over the particulars of that agreement. Your information is all yours. It's your private information, and under no circumstances am I just going to leak that information. There are a couple of reasons why I would have to forfeit that information, and we're going to go over all of that.
Cool.
Your privacy rights are protected by the HIPAA law, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it just means that any information you give to me is releasable to yourself and anyone else that you would note it to. Like if you had a spouse or your daughter years from now wanted to see it because she is involved in the case, that is releasable to her as well. The other law that is really protecting confidentiality is 42 CFR, which just more strictly discusses our relationship and our confidentiality relationship, and a couple of the reasons why I might breach confidentiality. We can talk about those. So the first reason would be if our organization, our coalition, was being audited. So we are a funded organization, which means we apply for several different types of grants, and those grants are given to us based on what we say we are going to do and how we do it. So an auditor might come in and happen to want to peruse your case, and under those circumstances, to make sure that we are doing our job effectively and that we are applying the resources that are given to us by the community, they would need to look over the information that you've given us.
Okay.
The other reason could be if you were to commit a crime on premises, I would have to get the police and the authorities involved, and that is really just for your safety as well as ours. The third reason would be if there were a medical emergency, if you were to fall and pass out. Obviously, any information that would be pertinent to your recovery, I would have to release to medical professionals.
Okay.
If you were to discuss with me a case of child abuse or neglect, that is another reason that I would have to breach that confidentiality agreement. Child abuse and neglect is a very serious issue, and any cases of it are to be reported to authorities by law. So that's an instance where I would have to get authorities involved. Also, domestic violence. So if you had a domestic partner and there was any kind of violence going on where you, your daughter, or the other partner was being harmed, that is something else that I would have to report to authorities. Also, if you spoke to me about hurting yourself or others, we really just want to make sure that families are set up for success and that you are always safe. So your safety is of the utmost importance to us. And then finally, if for some reason there was a court action and you were involved, the court could order me to turn over specific information and data that we have discussed in the confines of this office. it's not as easy as just getting a subpoena. The judge would actually have to court order me to hand over that information. And under those circumstances, I would ask to meet with the judge and discuss the fact that this is a confidential agreement, and really try to not hand over that information. But again, the court could order me to do so, depending on the severity of the case.
Okay.
All right? Perfect. So you don't have any questions about confidentiality and reasons why I might have to violate that?
No, you explained it pretty well.
Perfect. The next thing I would like to touch on is the weekly and bi-weekly meetings I may be having with your Child Protective Services worker. Again, this isn't an official case, it's just really following up. But I want you to know the types of information that would be divulged to her. It's not going to be specifics of the things that we exactly speak about here, but because we are all community organizations, she may come to me and ask the progress of the situation and where I see you going, and I would give that information to her in a very general manner. Do you have any questions about that?
No, not at all.
Again, if there's ever anything that you want to discuss with me, or you want to see those notes and the files that I put together about your case, you are more than welcome to do so. There is a processing way of doing things, so you'd have to fill out the appropriate documentations, and then you and I would sit down and meet and discuss the entire file and everything that's in it. You can do that at any time. It is your right to look over all of your private information.
Right.
So, how many times do we have to meet? I know that's a big question for a lot of the parents that I do meet with. A lot of them have very busy schedules and many things to do. I will say that generally speaking, I do ask that parents come and meet with me 4 to 5 times, which is for about a month time period. We want to make sure that we have the ball rolling on the processes that we want to set in place to set both you and your daughter up for success. So we want to make sure that we have clear goals that we're setting and a clear plan of how to achieve them. So that being said, we operate between the hours of like 8 and 4:30, sometimes 5. If it's going to be later, we will always notify you. During off hours, you can always contact the number that I provided you with in your welcome packet. It is a number that you can contact with emergencies, or if you really just feel that something is getting out of hand, you don't want it to escalate, you can call that number at any time and they will help you through the situation. Any questions about that?
What is our schedule going to be like day-to-day wise?
Well, our schedule and our appointments are really going to be what works for you. So I know that you said you have a full-time job, so we'll really try and make sure that the appointments are set based on your schedule. So obviously you're going to have to look at your schedule and then come back to us and set your appointments accordingly.
Okay.
Cool. Speaking of appointments, I just want to talk about kind of the general way that our appointments work. As I said, we want to meet between 4 and 5 times, but I want to talk to you about what each time is pretty much going to look like. So this counts as our first session, and in this session we're just kind of going over general information. I'll get to know you a little bit, not a whole lot, and we're going to fill out all of the paperwork and documentation that needs to happen to be put in your file so that we can start the process. Our second meeting would pretty much be an entrance interview. We're going to talk a lot about you, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I just really want to get a clear picture of what your life is like and any struggles you might be having and the reasons behind Amelia's lateness and absences, so that we can work together to frame a path for you to really facilitate development with your daughter and to help her gain the education that she deserves. So our third interview, or our third session rather, is going to be really processing through all the information and the data that I collect from that second time. So we're going to touch on points that really stick out to me. You can talk about things that you would like to bring up. But it's really a time for us to work through all of the information we have gotten, and if you have had any time to reflect on that information, what you really want to do with it. And then at our fifth time, probably, or our fourth time, we would go over the report that I generate for you. So everything that we talk about is going to be held nice and neatly in a report in a very clear format. And we're going to go over that report. We're going to go over what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and when we're going to do it by. All of the resources that we have available and that are available for you in the community will be delineated in that report. And it's really a time for you to ask questions and for us to figure out whether our professional relationship will continue, or if you really feel that you, now that you have this plan, have the entire situation under control and are ready to function based on that plan.
Okay.
Cool. So do you have any questions about any of that?
No.
All right. I do want to let you know that this organization is for everyone. So regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, veteran status, disability, we are here to help you and your daughter. We help a variety of different people within the community. And again, our mission is to really facilitate that relationship between you and your daughter, where she is developing on the path that she needs to and gaining the education that she so deserves. Lastly, I will say that I know we've talked about a lot of things today, but we really care about your safety and the safety of your daughter. So our goal is to have a healthy working relationship between yourself and the community and the resources that you have, as well as a healthy familial relationship between you and your daughter.
Awesome.
Do you have any other questions for me?
That's all.
Perfect. So we're going to go ahead and start with this entrance paperwork and then take it from there.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.